Hello! Hello and welcome to service sessions number 8 and what is probably the most requested session, Ableton Live. Ableton Live and the Service Pro 3 is probably a very obvious pairing because Live is the program that you're going to be using live and performing live with Live most often. Has anybody else noticed that Live is actually a really annoying name for a piece of software that you use to perform live, because you tend to be using Live when performing live, and how well does Live run live in a live situation when you're performing live with Live? Good choice! In the last service session I did a whole load of stuff using Live when performing live, so if that's something that interests you, then go and check out service session number 7. I'm sorry that it's taken quite a while to get here, but I did want to look at some other key bits of software first and also iron out some of the kinks and quirks, particularly when I'm heading towards a stressful situation of actually performing live with Live. So what's its performance like? How well does it sit and work? How touchable is it? Wow, let's have a look. Installation of Live couldn't be simpler really. You download a nice big fat installer file, run it, it installs, and you're there. It is a bit annoying because when you first start it up, it then spends an hour kind of expanding and sticking the library around the place. But once it's done all of that, then online authorization is pretty simple and you're ready to go. I found that I'm able to run this on a couple of different devices without any trouble from Ableton, so I can authorize the same license on my desktop as I have on here, and that seems to be okay. And personally I really like that kind of common sense approach to copy protection. So, you know, they're not messing about. They understand that people tend to run it on perhaps a laptop for performance and a desktop for writing, and that's cool and groovy for them. So yeah, we really like that kind of thing. Ableton is quite happy with the onboard sound. It also takes ASIO drivers and all the usual sort of stuff, but it does get sort of tripped up by the dual speakers and headphone sort of nonsense. In case you haven't seen any of my other videos, the speakers of the Surface and its headphone socket operate on independent drivers, which sounds good for a minute, and then you realise, no, that's really annoying because you can't just plug the headphones in and expect the software to change to that output. You have to fiddle about in the software, and Ableton doesn't like it very much. So currently it's set to the internal speaker. That's fine. Let's have a look at that in the preferences. So audio type MME DirectX, that's fine. Output is on one of these two. I've either got speakers DX or I've got speakers. Doesn't really make any sense because I'm trying to talk about the headphones and stuff. But anyway, so it's set to play fine on the speakers. Now if I plug some headphones in here, it's still playing through the speakers. So let's go to options, preferences again, and let's attempt to change this to the other one. Okay. No, see, that didn't work. Let's try that again. Options, preferences, make sure I did choose a different one. That one or this one. See, now it's failing to open one of them, which it was fine before. But now we're through the speakers. Not through the speakers, but now we're through the headphones. So that's not very smooth. That's not remotely smooth. In fact, you know, it's so unsmooth, I don't really know what it was that made that work. If I go back to here, try now to select the other one, it gives me this error, and I can't get out of that error until I restart. But has that changed where the output's coming from? No. If I unplug that, does that make a difference? No, it's still going through there. Blah de blah de blah. Let's try the other one again. Gets the error, comes out. Now we're back on the speakers. So that's smooth and groovy. No, not at all. So again, if you're using the onboard, then you're better off using ASIO for all, which is going to allow you to set up the inputs and outputs as you want them to be with the onboard stuff. Of course, you are always better off using a USB audio interface, but if you're just carrying it around and using it by yourself, you can do that with the speakers, or headphones preferably if you're working with it. You've just got to grasp the weirdness of the driver situation with that. Moving on. So Ableton Live does appear to be finger friendly. You can touch around the stuff, but something you'll notice very, very quick is that all the controls act in a really stupid way. So if you attempt to move a fader, for instance, it shoots from the minimum straight up to the maximum, and it's very difficult, and you have to move your finger very, very slowly to get anything in between. The same is true of all the sends. They jump. Let me try to grab one so I can show you. See, nothing, nothing, nothing. Whoop, and it goes all the way around. Whoop, whoop, and it's the same with the pen. I can grab something and it's going to just shoot around. I'll bring you in a bit closer so you can see that. So let's have a look at this fader here, for instance. It just disappears and it shoots to the top. And if I'm very careful, I can just about get it somewhere in the middle. But basically, it's all over the place. And that's true of sends, it's true of every controller within this situation. So that's rubbish, and I've seen that in other bits of software as well when looking at multi-touch. So what's the reasoning behind it? I don't really have any idea. It's almost like there's some kind of sort of exponential mouse curve going on. But obviously it's no problem with a mouse. You grab any of the things with the trackpad and it's completely fine, completely linear, completely as you'd expect it to be. So why does it have a difference with the pen or the finger? I don't know. I can't seem to find an answer to that question. But thankfully, Ableton have also seen this as a problem and have a sort of solution for it. They call it absolute mouse mode, and that allows you to use your pen and your fingers in a sensible way. So let's see how we do that. What you need to do is create a text file called options.txt. Here we go. I've created one here. So create it in Notepad, and then you need to write the words a dash or a minus sign absolute mouse mode, and then save it. Now we're going to go into a hidden part of Windows in order to stick it in the right folder. So able to make this nice and easy for you. So what you have to do is find your hard drive and then go to users, then your name, then you need to find app data, which won't be there unless you've ticked the hidden items box. So app data, roaming, Ableton, then the version of Live you're running, and then preferences. So if you've got all of that, that's enormous. Information is available on Ableton's website if you search for options.txt, and it will show you what to do there. But then take your options file and dump it into there. That should be it. And now I can move the fader and the send and other bits and pieces completely perfectly. Why that isn't on by default, I don't have the faintest clue. Why it's so difficult to do, I have no idea. Why it can't just be a preference, I don't know. But, you know, to be honest, it's only me and you people watching who are even thinking about multi-touch and pen control and this kind of thing on this software. They don't seem to give a monkeys, which is a shame because there's a lot of fantastic stuff and potential in this platform that I think anyone, any software company could, if they wanted to, really harness and do something exciting and fantastic with. But that's by the by. Let's move on. So now we've got basic control functionality sorted out. Let's have a look at how it sits on the screen. It doesn't have any of the sort of scaling problems that we've seen with Pro Tools or anything like that. It completely opens itself up full screen and knows what it's doing. The little play buttons are touchable, but they're small. And I mean, if you're working on it with the pen, then I don't think there's a problem. This sort of resolution, this sort of scaling is completely fine. You've got a lot on screen. You can see everything because of the layout. There's not really multiple windows in Ableton like there is in other programs. So everything fits really well, but it's too small for fingers. Really, realistically, it's too small for fingers. Now, Ableton has a solution to this itself. Within itself, it has a scaling. So if you go to Preferences, go to Look and Feel, there's a zoom display option here, and you can, and it does it, you know, beautifully in the background. You can make it super small, or you can make it super big. Now, if you take it to about 150%, it actually fits pretty well. Let's get rid of that side of things. That side of things. And now I've got a pretty fingerable interface. You know, that's great. I would say it's pretty perfect. As you can see, there's bits here that I can't see, that I can't quite get to, so the scaling has kind of pushed those outside the screen. So yeah, that's a real possibility, and straight away you're touching and sorting things out in that way that you weren't before. Although I am slightly narked that I can't quite see all of the window, and if I make this even bigger, then parts of the window have actually gone off the screen, and I can't get them back. There's no way of sort of moving the screen area around this screen. So only really at 150% does it seem to fit sort of fairly naturally. Anything else, and it's spilling over the edge, which is a little bit strange, I suppose. A little bit strange that you can't fit it within a window, that you have to try to move the window around. But at about 150%, let's bring that down, it fits pretty well. I like that. Let's see what it looks like using Windows scaling. So if we go into the display options and put this up to 200% in the Windows display options, apply that, then we'll see how well Ableton copes with that. Now looking at that, I've now got everything sat on screen properly, and if I go into full screen mode, I've got everything at a decent size that's decently touchable, he says, not being able to touch it. There we go. Here's one thought I had, which is, why can't the entire clip trigger the loop? Why does it have to be on this piddling little play button? The same with the scenes. You know, I can select a scene, and I don't understand why that can't trigger the scene itself. Rather than having to hit the actual play button, why can't this block, this thing here, why can't that do it? Why does it have to be the little play button? Or perhaps, if there's a real big reason for that, why can't there be a mode that you can turn on, like a performance mode, which enables that functionality, that enables the clip to be the trigger rather than the piddling little play button. And that would make a massive difference for touch. There's no other sort of gesture-based control that Ableton understands. You can do sort of a zoom in on the timeline with a single finger like you can with the mouse, but there's no pinch to zoom in any direction in anything as far as we can tell. So at 200% on Windows, the Ableton Live interface becomes really, really usable. So I think perhaps there's probably somewhere using the zoom function in Ableton Live and the desktop scaling in Windows that makes this perfect. Working with controllers is a bit of a thing for live, and I would always use it with the good old Launchpad because it just makes the whole world a lot easier. It is restrictive in its 8x8 form factor, but as long as you know your projects and you have visual clues going on, then it's a really good way of getting away from the computer and controlling it in a live performance. With the scaling adjustments on the Surface Pro 3, you could do away with the controller, but then actually, why not have everything? Why not give yourself all the options? And that brings me nicely to a little bit of trouble I had when I was performing live in, as you'll see, in Service Session 07, where I had trouble running my Launchpad and my base station keyboard, both from Novation, had trouble running them together on the same machine. I didn't look into it in any depth, so I didn't get to the bottom of why that happened, but I couldn't get them to play nicely. So let's see if I can do that now. So first thing I'll do is I'll plug in my powered hub, which worked so well previously. Then I'll plug in my Launchpad, my base station. Do 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 do. So everything's gone ding ding. Let's have a look into live to see whether that's actually working. Yeah, I've got stuff going on from there. If I stick on my MIDI track, and I've got a MIDI input there. So that's good. So those two can certainly work together. However, what you may have noticed is that currently we're just using the onboard audio. So what happens if we plug in an audio interface? Okay, I've got a green light on that. Let's run live. Yeah, I've got this all lit up and working. I've got this working and audio at the same time. So yeah, the short answer is that can all totally work. What I should say though is when I was kind of practicing this bit before filming, when I plugged in the fast track, I got the first blue screen that I've actually ever had on the Surface Pro 3. So there is a little bit of resource fiddling going on that you need to be aware of. So it may be just the order in which things were plugged in. It may be giving things enough time to install themselves and install their drivers. So this worked completely flawlessly here, which is brilliant, but it may not always do so. So just, you know, you have to be a little bit careful. You have to take a bit of patience with it, and sometimes it may not work and you might need to rearrange what you do. But here it is, completely supporting an audio interface, a keyboard and a controller. Nice. So how easy is it to work with in this space? Well, let's have a look. I'm kind of leaning towards the zoom in live now rather than desktop scaling windows. I think I've put this at about sort of 130%, 135%, and that seems good. I think perhaps when you get down to some more complex working, then making it smaller so you can see more on screen might not be a bad thing. But at the moment, I'm sort of going with this, although that may change. But I think it's a super feature that I wasn't aware of before that can just make the interface work so much better. So that's interesting. So the next thing, of course, I'm going to need is my handy pen toolbar that I've used previously. Now with Ableton, I don't actually use keyboard shortcuts very much. Perhaps, you know, copy and paste and play, stop, things like that. So I've really had to sort of dig around to find things that might be useful. But there are a number of things. So here's my toolbar. So let me load up a project and bring you closer in, and we'll have a look at the Toolbar Creator. So I've taken the keyboard off. We're now running just on the Surface, and let me just show you the things I've stuck into this toolbar here. Obviously you can stick in whatever you like, but the things that seem sensible to me are things like the view. So you swap between the your scene thing and your thing. I don't really know what they call these things. I don't know that I care. Full screen or not. There was one tricky thing I found, that when you put it in full screen from the options up here and you don't have the keyboard attached, there's no way to get out of full screen again. So that's an absolutely vital one, to be able to go full screen or not. Full screen is great. It's a great mode for the Surface. It just puts everything where you need it to be. So let's keep it in that then. Clip device, which is to do with down here. So if you select a clip, you can show what effects are on it, or the clip itself with that little one. It swaps the two tabs down here. I don't know if you're particularly aware of those. So if I had an audio effect in, for instance, if I pop down here to my browser, let's stick a chorus on, for instance, like that. So that's the effects window for that particular clip, and then there's the clip itself. Yeah, you getting that? See, that's easy. Detail is essentially this bottom window here that I'm showing and hiding. That's pretty cool. Browser, I've just turned that on and off, as you saw. Mixer, you can get rid of those bits to give you more of the clips and the scenes and stuff like that. Overview is this bit at the top that's more helpful in the sort of the track layout view, that gives you an overview of what's going on. So you can hide that. Copy and paste, so I can select something, copy it, select the next thing, paste that in. There's also a duplicate button, which does the same thing, kinda, and an undo as well. Oh, excuse me. Hide, which hides that. I've got play, which is also stop. So that's very interesting. Ta-da. Then, struggling around to find other things to fill up this toolbar with, I went for insert audio track. Da-ding! Audio track, audio track. Undo, undo. And MIDI track similarly. But those are very annoying things to do otherwise, because you've got to hold your pen down and wait for the right button thing to come up, and then find insert audio track or MIDI track there. So it's useful to have a button just to do that. You've got draw, so if I create a clip down here, I can change my pen into draw mode. Did you see that? Let's make this a little bit bigger here. So I've got select on at the moment, and then I press that and I've got draw. Yeah, simple. I've also got a quantize button, so I can go back in here, select them all and hit quantize, and if they were all off the beat, then that would be helpful. I've then got a plugin button. Now that doesn't do anything unless you've got a sort of VST plugin loaded up. So I've got my MIDI track here. If I open my browser, I'm gonna have to move this out of the way, find some of my plugins, something native instruments. So let's stick, where was that going to go? That was going to go on my MIDI track there. So I've stuck Absinthe on. I can then use my plugin button, I believe, to bring that interface up. Make sure I'm on it. No, no. Well, I thought I could anyway. Yeah, it does. You've just got to be in the right situation, I think. Oh, maybe that one requires a little bit of work, who knows. Then I've got zoom in, which is in the timeline here, and zoom out. Duplicate, undo, play. There, that's simple. So that's my toolbar, which again is a vital thing when running the Surface. I can't think of how you can use this software without having something like that. And then general usage within Ableton is pretty good. You know, it's easy to bring everything up to the size you want it to be, to zoom in and out, to draw in your velocity bits and pieces, or to go to this view. So it's very easy to draw in whatever it is you want to do, or select different bits just with the tap of that. Easy, very, very easy. And look, and there's my plugin. You see, it does work. Move back to here. Now my overview should have something in it. Yeah, well, no, there's not actually any data in it, but you can do that very easily by recording something. So now we have stuff here that we can edit and get into. One thing you don't have is the ability to hold down control to do some movement with the pen. So, I mean, in many bits of software, if you hold control or alt, you can copy and paste by dragging. This particular toolbar doesn't have that ability at the moment. There is another one that does, apparently, but it seems to be all in Japanese. But I will look into that at some point soon just to see if that's a better bet. But I think it's a lot more complex to get set up in the first place. So, but I'll be looking at that. But that would be a handy thing to be able to hold down control and do that. I wonder if you could do it with the keyboard here. So can we get something that I could use? So I could press control. No. That's just moving that around. Whereas if you stick the keyboard back on, like so, sorry. If you hold down the control key, I can now do copy and paste. So that is a factor that we don't have. I wonder whether it's possible to allocate it to one of the buttons on the pen or something like that. I don't know. Let's look that up, because I've got the Surface Hub software, which does let you do some things to the pen. You've essentially got the pen top button, and it's just select which application, but you can't seem to do anything to these two buttons here. Or maybe you can. Maybe it's something I need to look into. But anyway, that's how you get around in Live. Ta-da! So maybe what I'll do now is create or improvise an entire piece in Ableton, so you can see using MIDI and audio and the browser and the toolbar and all those sort of things, how they can all be used relatively seamlessly and easily. And I'll try to bore you with a brand new piece of music. How exciting!
start the game again? Do you want to start the game again? Do you want to start the game again? Do you want want to start the game again? Do you want to start the game again? Do you want to start the game again?
People always ask me about performance testing. How well does it perform? What could it do? How many plugins can you run? That kind of thing. It's really a difficult question to answer, constantly a difficult question to answer. And in trying to find some kind of useful comparison, you just end up going around in circles. And it very often doesn't really mean anything, because it's always going to be different depending on your audio interface, the version of Surface that you have, what other plugins you're running, how warm it is. Lots of different factors are involved in trying to give some kind of decent performance thing. However, I did find a performance test on the Ableton forum, which might be helpful. I don't know. We'll have a look. So this is it. It's a simple 8-track test which has got some plugins running and bits and pieces. And the idea is that you're supposed to measure the CPU usage, and then that gives us a comparison to other systems. Let's dig it at the beginning. Suffice to say, it's a very annoying test. Even the benchmark, even the Door Bench song is better than this. So yeah, that's exciting. But our CPU meter up here gets at around sort of 25–26%. So that seems like a fair comparison. But then when you go and have a look and see what other people have got on the forum, you'll find a whole mixture of stuff that just doesn't really make any sense. So I've got some. So for instance, there's a MacBook Pro i5 that runs at 30%, an iMac Core 2 Duo running at 36%, a 2.9 GHz i7 MacBook Pro running at 25%. Now there's no way that my i5 Surface here is of the same power as a 2.9 i7 MacBook. So what does it mean? I don't know. I mean, my desktop, which is an i7 3770K, ran the test at 13%, so that seems to make a bit more sense. But really, using the CPU meter here to try to test performance in a comparison on different machines is just really not going to work, because that's not really showing you anything useful. It's not accurate. It's not designed to do that kind of thing. What perhaps would be more interesting, and which has also been suggested on the forum, is to duplicate the tracks and then get to a point where you get failure. And that's a sort of performance test that seems to work, because that's other things are based upon that. The Door Bench tests are based upon that. You keep going until it crackles, and that then gives you a better idea of the total capability of your system, rather than a comparison based on some kind of meter in your system, which could be showing you all sorts of different weird things. So if you get the same test, if you select 8 tracks and hit duplicate, I've then got 16. Duplicate again, 24, that kind of thing. And the idea is that you keep going until your system packs up. So I'm now up at about 55%, that's fine. Let's hit duplicate again, see where we get to. So 32 tracks, I'm up to 65%, 48. See, that's the sort of thing that's actually more helpful. So at 48 tracks, it jittered a little bit and then it recovered. So, you could probably squeeze a few more out of there. I mean, looking on their forum, there was a 2.2 gigahertz i7 Toshiba laptop, which did about sort of 40–50 tracks. There was a MacBook Pro i7 2.6 that did around 80 tracks. Now that sounds like a better comparison. My desktop machine went over 100 tracks without any trouble, and onwards from there. So that perhaps gives you an idea of what the performance is, or perhaps shows you why performance testing is tricky and stupid most of the time, and largely unhelpful. I mean, what I can say about it is that the performance seems good. I can run tons of tracks with tons of samples and a lot of effects without running into too much trouble. But it's only an i5, so you're only going to be able to get that kind of performance out of it if you have an i7 desktop is going to be more powerful. If you have an i7 laptop, it's going to be more powerful. So there's nothing mysterious about it. It's, you know, is as good as it is. The thing to remember, though, that it is an ultrabook processor, and so its sustained power, that its ability to run its ability to run under load for a long period of time is not as good as a desktop processor would be, because it's always trying to shut down and trying to find a more power efficient place. So there you go. Is that helpful? I don't know. But yeah, don't be fooled. Don't be fooled by these sorts of percentage things and comparisons on websites. Be very careful about that kind of thing. The Ableton Live and the Surface Pro 3 is a match made somewhere on the way to heaven. There are a few key things that Ableton could do to turn it into a completely joyous, touchable experience. But with my handy toolbar, using the pen for editing is an absolute breeze. And once you've scaled it up, it really does become a fantastic live performance tool. I really wish one of these big players just had the imagination to embrace touch technology on the desktop. It would be an awesome thing. Well, now it's time to look at software that does have some touchableness built in. Stuff like Sonar, FL Studio, Stage Light, that kind of thing. So that's what we're going to be looking at next. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Lots more to do, and have a very Merry Christmas.